Hey again, this is part two of my little metronome ideas that I like to do. So in the first video, you should probably watch that one first. If you're watching this one first, I would recommend going to that one. But in this one, I want to talk about, in the last one we talked about detailing shifting metronomes and shifting the beats related to a steady metronome, mostly by 16th notes and or 8th note triplet notes. Now what I want to talk about is we'll get into that again, but also the idea of expanding your metronome to go at slower rates, right? So you can do the opposite order also. You can go the opposite direction, I should say, where let's say you want the metronome on the 8th note, right? So we were at 85 for the quarter note last time. That means, again, 85 beats in a minute. In 60 seconds, it's 85 beats, so a little more than a beat per second, right? If we want 8th notes, the 8th note speed is double the quarter note speed, so that would be like 170 8th notes in a minute, and so on. You can keep doing math. You know, whoever said music is math was definitely accurate in that statement, and the metronome goes to prove that, right? Obviously, music is a art form that we love to listen to and enjoy, but when we get out into the nitty-gritty of it, there are a lot of mathematical concepts, right? But I want to go the opposite direction. I want to go slower, right? So let's say instead of the metronome beating on quarter notes, it beats on half notes, only 2 clicks per measure instead of 4 typical clicks per measure. Now, I should have, without thinking ahead, I didn't have good foresight here, I should have picked an original even number. I picked 85. So we're going to approximate. Approximately half the speed of 85, we're going to say for right now, is 42, right? Even though there's one extra beat there, I know. But we're going to call it 42. That's close enough for our purposes. So this is going to sound like the half note now instead of the 8th note. Instead of the quarter note. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I still want to play the same beat I did at 85 for the record. But now this is going to, it's going to happen half as often. So you have more responsibility to make sure the in-between parts are right with that metronome. So it forces you to subdivide that much more closely. Now let's say I get off a little bit. I'm constantly making adjustments, right? That's what you have to think. Each measure is like a clean slate. You want to adjust whether you're slow or fast, and then just get back as soon as you can. That's all you can do. No one has computer perfect metronomic time, right? Everybody's human, so as close as you can get it is going to be helpful enough. So again, with that one. Right? And we could, for the record, we could still do the shifting 16th note idea we talked about. So, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, E and a 1, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, E and a 1, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, E and a 1, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 3. Now the metronome is clicking on, instead of every E, it's clicking on the E of 1 and the E of 3, right? Same shifting idea, but again, just half as often. And then we can do the ands and the uhs. I think you get the idea. Let's take it one step further. Now, half of 42 is 21, right? So now this is going to sound from our original beat at 85 for the quarter note. This is going to sound like the metronome is clicking just once every beat. Once every measure, I should say. So 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And this one, you might have to shift, like I said, you might have to adjust, because it's not giving you as much information as the original example. 2, 3, 4. Same idea with the E's, ands, and U's. Let's try the this time. So, O1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and O1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and O1 E and a. So the metronome now is only clicking on the of 4. That's how I'm perceiving it. 2E and a 3E and a 4E and oh 1E. Oops, I was early. 3E and a 4E and oh 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and 3 and pop. Pop. E and a 4 and I was early. E and a 3 and a 3 and a 4 and oh 1E and a 2E and a 3 and a 4 oh. So you can start to get a little fancier if you want, but subdivision is key, right? I'm still thinking that's the of 4 the metronome is clicking on. That's all I'm giving. And I was not perfect that time, right? By any means. I had a lot of stuff where I was off, either early or late. But again, you know, treat that, don't necessarily think you have to start everything over. Just keep going. I think the key here is to keep going and then try to make the shifts little by little that you need to make. So always keep an ear open for if you're early or late and try to adjust accordingly. That's the key for this. If you just keep stopping and starting, in my experience, you tend to keep making the same mistakes a little more. So just keep shifting until you really lock into whatever beat. You know, we can, for this slow of a rate, we could also think like other quarter notes that the metronome is landing on. So let's say we want the metronome to land on 2, on the downbeat of 2. So it's like 2, 3, 4, 1. 2, 3, 4, 1. Another little thing to remember, if you all of a sudden can't hear your metronome, a lot of people will freak out at that. They'll be like, oh no, I must be playing too loud. It actually typically tends to mean that you're playing right in sync with it. So that's a good thing. If you start to not hear it, that means you're lined up pretty smack dab in the middle with it. So I think ultimately, even though it feels a little awkward because you can't hear it anymore, that's actually a good thing. That means you're right lined up with it. So keep all that stuff in mind. Again, these two little parts of video clips are just ways to really expand your interest level regarding the metronome and, you know, your creativity with it as well. Hope you enjoyed. Click the subscribe button. I'll see you next time. Thank you.